It was the evening of May 3, 2007, in Praia da Luz, a quiet seaside town in Portugal. The McCann family were on vacation. Kate and Jerry, both doctors from England, and their 3 children. Madeleine, who was 3 years old, and the twins, Sean and Amelie. They had spent the day by the pool, the kids laughing and splashing under the warm sun. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, their first real break in years. That night, after putting the children to bed, Kate and Jerry joined their friends for dinner at a nearby restaurant inside the resort complex. The group, later called the Tapas 7, had a simple system. Every 30 minutes one of them would go check on the kids. The apartments were close enough that it seemed safe. Around 9:05 p.m. Jerry went to check. He saw Madeleine sleeping soundly, tucked in beside her twin siblings. Everything seemed fine. He returned to the restaurant. But less than an hour later, at around 10 p.m., Kate went for her turn. When she entered, something felt wrong. The bedroom door was slightly open, the curtains moved gently in the wind. Then she saw it, the bed was empty. Madeleine was gone. Panic exploded through the resort. Kate ran back screaming, "They've taken her. Someone's taken Madeleine." Guests and staff rushed out to search. People ran toward the beach, through streets, calling her name, checking every corner. The police were called, but the initial response was chaotic. The apartment was never sealed. Dozens of people had walked through, touching doors, windows, and furniture. By the time authorities began organizing, hours had already passed. The search spread across the Algarve coast. Posters with Madeleine's picture, her bright eyes and light hair, appeared everywhere. Television stations ran the story around the clock. Within days the world knew her name. But as time went on and no suspect was found, the tone began to change. Investigators grew frustrated. The media began asking questions. How could a child disappear from a room while her parents were so close by? Soon, suspicion turned toward the McCanns themselves. Portuguese police believed Madeleine might have died accidentally in the apartment and that her parents covered it up. Cadaver dogs claimed to detect the scent of blood and death in their apartment and rental car. But there was no physical proof, no body, no DNA, no timeline that fit. Even so, the headlines exploded. The grieving parents were turned into suspects overnight. In September 2007, both Kate and Jerry were officially named arguidos, formal suspects. They were interrogated for hours but maintained their innocence. Months later, the case was dropped for lack of evidence and they were cleared. Still, the damage was done. Their lives, already shattered by grief, were now buried under judgment and rumors. Despite everything, the McCanns refused to stop searching. They launched the Find Madeleine campaign, raising funds to hire private investigators. Billboards, interviews, and televised appeals followed. Kate once said, "Madeleine is still out there. We just need the right person to come forward." In 2011, the British Prime Minister ordered a review of the case. The Metropolitan Police, through Operation Grange, re-examined every file, every statement. Detectives found thousands of documents that had been overlooked. They shifted focus from the parents to the possibility of abduction. They looked into known offenders in the area, reports of break-ins near the resort, and witnesses who claimed to have seen strange men watching families in the days before the disappearance. But despite years of investigation, every lead went nowhere. Time kept passing. The McCanns held on to hope as the world slowly moved on. Every year on Madeleine's birthday they released a statement. "Madeleine is loved. She is missed. And we will never stop looking." Her room at home stayed the same, her toys, her clothes, everything untouched, waiting. Then, in 2020, came a shocking development. German police named a new suspect, Christian Brueckner. He was a convicted pedophile who had lived in the Algarve around the time Madeleine disappeared. He drove a camper van, had a long criminal history, and was known for breaking into holiday homes. Investigators discovered that on the night Madeleine vanished, Brueckner had received a phone call near the resort. It ended just an hour before she was reported missing. German prosecutors announced that they believed Madeleine was dead and that Brueckner was responsible. It was devastating news, yet somehow, it gave the McCanns a sliver of hope. After years of silence, there was finally a lead that made sense. Police searched properties linked to him, dug up land and seized evidence. But no direct proof connecting him to Madeleine was ever found. Brueckner remains in prison in Germany for other crimes, but he has not been charged for her disappearance. Today, nearly 2 decades later, the mystery remains unsolved. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann is one of the most haunting cases in modern history. It exposed failures in early investigation, divided public opinion, and revealed how fragile safety can be, even in the most ordinary places. The case also changed the world's approach to missing children. It led to new alert systems, faster international cooperation, and stricter child safety measures for travelers. But for the McCanns, none of that matters as much as the truth, the one thing they still don't have. In a 2023 interview, Kate McCann said quietly, "Hope has changed. At first, it meant believing she was alive. Now, it means believing we'll one day know what happened." Praia da Luz has returned to peace. The Ocean Club stands as just another resort, the laughter of tourists echoing where panic once filled the air. Yet for those who remember, the place still carries a ghost, the memory of a little girl who vanished without a trace. Madeleine would be a young woman now. Somewhere, someone knows what happened to her. Whether hidden in silence or waiting to be revealed, the truth is still out there. For the rest of the world, her story is a mystery. But for her parents, it is love that refuses to fade, a hope that refuses to die. Each year they still share her picture, a smiling girl in a pink dress, forever 3 years old, frozen in time but never forgotten. The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann is not just a story about loss. It is a story about how far love can go, even in the darkest places, even when the world has stopped believing. Years passed, and with every passing birthday, Madeleine's absence grew heavier. The world had changed since that night in 2007, but for Kate and Jerry McCann, time stood still. Their daughter's face remained on billboards, in news articles, and in their dreams, frozen in a moment that would never move forward. In 2014, the British police began one of their largest searches since the original investigation. Fields and wastelands near Praia da Luz were dug up, drones were flown, and dogs scoured the dry earth for any trace of her. Reporters camped outside the area for days, but once again the search ended without answers. The frustration became unbearable for many who followed the case. How could a child vanish in a resort filled with tourists, witnesses, and security, and leave behind not a single clue? Even among investigators, the theories began to drift apart. Some believed she had been taken by a stranger who acted on impulse. Others thought it was a planned abduction by someone who had watched the family for days. There were sightings too, hundreds of them. A little girl on a ferry in Morocco. A child at a gas station in Spain. A photograph taken in India that looked eerily familiar. But every lead led nowhere. Each time, the McCanns waited, held their breath, and then exhaled into disappointment. Kate once wrote in her book, "Every time the phone rings, there's a moment of fear and hope all at once." That became their life, hope and fear existing side by side, never letting go. Years turned into decades. The twins grew up under the shadow of their sister's story. The media often followed them, searching for new angles, but the family tried to protect what was left of their privacy. Jerry returned to work as a cardiologist. Kate, once a general practitioner, turned her energy toward child protection and missing children causes. Their pain became their purpose. But in the background, detectives continued quietly. Technology advanced. Old evidence was re-examined with newer forensic methods. A few years ago, a report emerged suggesting that mobile phone data from 2007 had finally been reanalyzed with modern tools. This led to a renewed focus on Christian Brueckner, the German man who had once lived just minutes from the Ocean Club. He was already serving a sentence for unrelated crimes, sexual assault and child abuse. But investigators believed there was more. They traced his phone to a signal near the resort around the exact time Madeleine vanished. They found pictures of him, his van, and disturbing evidence of his past behavior. The case against him began to grow, though still largely circumstantial. In 2023, police returned to Portugal, this time focusing on a remote dam where Brueckner was known to spend time. They drained sections of the reservoir, combed the banks, and searched with heavy equipment. It was a grim scene, quiet, tense, hopeful. Once again, nothing conclusive was found. For many, this was the moment when the world began to accept a painful truth, that maybe the answers might never come. But for Kate and Jerry, giving up was never an option. They continued to push for progress, even as the years took their toll. Madeleine's room at home remained untouched, her bed still made, her favorite stuffed cat still sitting by the pillow. In interviews, the McCanns spoke less often, but when they did, their words carried deep weight. Jerry once said, "We've learned that justice doesn't always come fast. But it doesn't mean it won't come at all." The media still returned every May on the anniversary of her disappearance. Documentaries were released, podcasts analyzed evidence, and internet sleuths dissected every detail. Some theories were reasonable, others cruel and baseless. The McCanns became symbols of both grief and resilience, surviving under a spotlight that most people would never endure. But beyond the noise, something else began to change. The case of Madeleine McCann had reshaped how the world responds when a child goes missing. It helped create cross-border databases, improved communication between European police forces, and strengthened awareness campaigns. What started as one family's nightmare evolved into a global call to action. Today, even though no one knows what truly happened that night in 2007, the case remains open in both the UK and Germany. Detectives still receive tips, and forensic technology continues to evolve. Somewhere, hidden in a report or a memory, may still lie the truth, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. In Praia da Luz, the Ocean Club has changed. The apartment where the McCanns stayed is now privately owned. Tourists still come and go, enjoying the sunshine, unaware of the heavy history carried by the walls around them. But locals remember. Some say that every May the air feels different, quieter, heavier, as if the town itself hasn't forgotten. One of the Portuguese officers once said, "In our work, most mysteries end with time. This one never did." And maybe that's what keeps the story alive, the absence of an ending. The possibility that someone out there knows something. The thought that a single confession or a single forgotten clue could still change everything. In recent years, advances in AI and digital facial reconstruction have produced age-progressed images of Madeleine, showing what she might look like now as a young adult. Her face, familiar yet older, has reignited interest around the world. Each new image brings a wave of renewed hope. Maybe someone will recognize her. Maybe someone will finally come forward. But until then, the world waits. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann is no longer just about one family. It has become a symbol of unanswered questions, of how fragile truth can be, and how deeply love can endure even when it has no resolution. In a world where attention fades quickly, the McCanns' commitment stands as something rare, persistence without certainty. Each anniversary they still write the same message: we will never give up. As time moves forward, new stories take the world's attention, new mysteries rise and fall, but this one remains. Because it's not just a mystery. It's a story about parents who refused to let silence win, about a child who became a symbol of hope for millions, and about a question that still echoes quietly through the years. What happened to Madeleine McCann? Maybe one day that question will finally be answered. Until then, the world will keep asking, and hoping.